You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. The Options Insider Radio Network is sponsored by Fidelity Investments. Fidelity's Option Trade Builder tool can help you confidently build an options trade in 3 simple steps. Just choose a strategy, select a contract, and then review the benefits and risks of the trade. Learn more about Option Trade Builder at fidelity.com/options. Options trading entails significant risk and is not appropriate for all investors. Certain complex option strategies carry additional risk. Before trading options, contact Fidelity Investments by calling 800-544-5115 to receive a copy of the characteristics and risks of standardized options. Fidelity Brokerage Services, LLC, member NYSE SIPC.
Join us now for the expert source for inside information on the options markets. It's time for Options Insider Radio with your host, Mark Longo.
All right, everybody. That music means it's time once again for Options Insider Radio, the interview program here on the old network where we welcome on guests from throughout the world of options, derivatives, and sometimes beyond, and proceed to pick their brains for the benefit of you, the listener. My name is Mark Longo, and I'm pleased to be joined by our next guest. He is a newcomer to the program and indeed to the network. He is Brian Kelly, the portfolio manager, easier for me to say, over there for the BKC ETF and for BKCM Digital Assets Fund. Brian, welcome to the Options Insider Radio program.
Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
And Brian, as we are wont to do with all of our first-timers here on the old program, why don't you go ahead and give our audience a little bit of an overview of your background and how you found your way to becoming the portfolio manager for BKCM.
Yeah, sure. So I've been in the markets for about 25 years now, I guess. Started my way as an equity trader, as well traded some foreign currency, and that got me into global macro investing. I ran a global macro strategy here at BKCM, which is my firm. I founded it. And in 2012, I stumbled across Bitcoin. In 2013, I bought my first Bitcoin, wrote a book about it in 2014, and since then I've been investing in the space, both in cryptocurrencies and on the equity side of the ledger.
You know, I like to explore that with all of our crypto-related guests who come on the network, and there are quite a few of them these days, as you might imagine. Everyone seems to have that moment where they were first awakened to either blockchain or crypto, or sometimes both simultaneously. There was that one revelatory moment where they said, wait a minute, there may be something here. I'm curious for you, what was that moment? What was that catalyst that first sparked your interest in blockchain or crypto or both?
Yeah, it was back in 2012. Well, I mean, I must admit, initially I was a skeptic, a big skeptic. I did not think that a digital currency could work, and that's primarily because I came from the foreign currency world, where you had all these preconceived notions of what a currency should be. It needed to be backed by an army. You had to pay. You had to be able to pay your taxes in it. All of those things Bitcoin didn't have. I didn't see how it can work. But ultimately, after spending about a year of a deep dive getting into it, what I realized is that what this is software that allows you to disintermediate financial services. And once I understood that, then I went, oh, wait a second. This is going to change everything about the business that I'm in. I better know everything about it. And I try to keep it that simple when I think about everything else. All this is software. And when you look at other industries that have been disrupted by software, you look at what blogs have done to newspapers and what YouTube has done to network TV, or even Netflix has done to network TV, you can see that you want to own the disruptors. So that's why I transitioned my firm BKCM to invest exclusively in digital assets.
Well, let's get to that then. Of course, you mentioned your firm there, BKCM, and the fund that you guys are managing right now, BKC, which is effectively a blockchain ETF. So tell us about it. We know this has been a very fluid space with a lot of people applying for various things in the blockchain and crypto asset ETF space. Tell us a little bit about your fund and what it is you guys trade over there.
Yeah, sure. So we partnered with RecShares on this, and the BKC, the ETF, is an ETF comprised of global equities that are generating revenue or devoting material resource to blockchain or cryptocurrency. And so one way to think about this is kind of the picks and shovels play for the ecosystem. We're investing in the banks that service the cryptocurrency and blockchain industry. We're investing in some of the technology providers like an IBM. We're investing in some of the equipment makers, some of the chip makers for the cryptocurrency mining we're in. And so what we've been able to do over the last couple of months is put together this portfolio that will give you exposure to blockchain and cryptocurrency, but not necessarily exposure to the direction of Bitcoin or other digital currencies.
Yes, I'm sure that's a popular misconception you guys get a lot, is that you guys are holding the underlying crypto assets, but that's clearly not the case.
Right. No, in this ETF, we do not hold any crypto assets, any cryptocurrencies. We don't do any ICOs. These are all global exchange-traded equities, just like you can buy in your Fidelity account. And we've put them together in a portfolio that we think captures what the industry's up to at this point in time.
Was that a deliberate choice? Was that in part reflected by the regulatory environment we're in right now, where holding any sort of underlying crypto as an ETF can get a little dicey with the regulators these days?
Yeah, well, with the regulators, there haven't been any approvals yet, at least in the U.S., of holding underlying crypto currency. So that was a roadblock for us for sure.
Yeah, a pretty large stumbling block, I would say.
Yeah, exactly.
Is that the plan down the road to eventually, once we start seeing approvals, maybe have spin-offs that do hold the underlying crypto, or is the focus primarily on blockchain for the time being?
You know, potentially. We'll have to see what the regulatory environment looks like, but never say never. For now, we're focused 100% on the equities, and we feel that we can put together a portfolio for people that'll get them kind of the picks and shovels exposure to the space, and potentially may not have as much volatility as some of the underlying cryptocurrencies might have.
Now, is there a lot of secret sauce that goes into this type of portfolio allocation? Because I've had people approach me in the past with various tilts at this windmill for some sort of blockchain ETF or underlying. And when I look at their prospectus, what they're actually holding, at least for some of them I looked at, it was 30% Amazon, 28% Microsoft, 20% maybe IBM, and it was mostly a basket of 3 or 4 large tech names, and then maybe I guess what you could call 5% of the secret sauce, which is getting maybe a little bit more into the weeds, some of the smaller names and ventures that are maybe disrupting the space a little bit. Is that a similar breakdown for your fund, or are you guys kind of getting out there with a little bit more esoteric investments?
That's a great question. No, I think what distinguishes us are a couple of different things. One, in terms of the market cap we're involved in, we tend to be skewed more towards the mid and small cap. We're really trying to provide as exposure to as pure plays as possible. But secondarily, I think what distinguishes us is that as a firm, BKCM invests across the investment spectrum, all the way from the seed stage, startup stage, to the mid-tier stage, to the public equities. We're seeing everything across the board, and that is reflected in our investment thesis in the ETF.
So you guys are doing startups as well, just no ICOs.
But not in the ETF. Just to be clear, as a firm itself, we have multiple different products that invest across the investment landscape in digital currencies and blockchain, but not in the ETF. But what that does is if we're seeing stuff on the startup stage that might be using one of the products that one of our companies is selling, we can then say, hey, you know what, we might be informed and say, hey, this is something we want to have a larger weight in because we're seeing an awful lot of demand for their product at the lower level startup stage.
I see. So you're not investing directly in the startups, but you're using what they're working on to perhaps give guidance for the larger
Correct.
other investments that you're working
Correct.
on in the space. Now, you mentioned earlier the relationship with RecShare. Our audience may be familiar with them from their many products and forays in the volatility space. They've been on our volatility program a few times, I believe, in the past. How did this relationship come about, and how did they get lured into the dark side of crypto and blockchain, if you will?
Yeah, so Greg King, who founded RecShares, we've known each other for the last several years. Obviously, he's a pioneer in the ETF space. And so when he came to me and, he's been into Bitcoin for the last several years, I think maybe 2014 or so when he bought his first Bitcoin. And so he's really been deep into the cryptocurrency space. He came to me and said, hey, listen, I'm thinking about putting together some products in this space. And it was just a natural combination between us two because he had the expertise in this particular, in the ETF landscape, and I had the expertise in the blockchain and cryptocurrency space.
And what has the response been to the ETF so far? I mean, obviously, maybe a year ago, we saw just an explosion of enthusiasm and interest in all things blockchain and related like crypto, and no doubt in part driven by the fact that, Bitcoin was on its ramp up, its march to 20,000. Since then, we've seen Bitcoin, let's say, sell off a little bit. I think it's at 6,200 right now, and the futures are still at that level. Sold off a couple hundred handles again just in the last few weeks. Has that overall sell-off we've seen across the board in the crypto assets, has that fed back into maybe a lack of interest in the underlying technology as well, or is it kind of all systems go over there on the blockchain investment front?
I have to say, I mean, the bear market has certainly taken the cryptocurrencies off the boil, and perhaps some of the curiosity over how fast those were appreciating have disappeared. But from where I sit, the technology has not stopped. People continue to build at a breakneck speed. People are continuing to innovate. So I have not seen any slowdown in the underlying technology and what's being built at all. It's kind of a funny thing. You might look at the price of Bitcoin and think, oh, well, there's nothing going on. And I can tell you there is an awful lot going on.
I know there is indeed. I was looking over the prospectus for your fund and what you guys are working on, and I think it's clear to say that you guys are big proponents of the blockchain space and the impact it has. I believe you even are quoted somewhere in the prospectus as saying it will have as significant, if not more significant, of an impact than the internet going forward, which is quite a statement. I think we all know how much of an impact the internet has had over the last several decades in our lives here. So it's clear to see you guys are deeply down the rabbit hole for blockchain going forward there, Brian.
Yeah, that's for sure. And to me, this technology really is an extension of the internet. If you think about kind of the three phases of the internet, you had Web 1.0, which basically was just a giant electronic database. We dumped all the information that we had in books and we put it into this database. Web 2.0, you got some tools where we could publish, individuals could publish new information. And what we're going to be able to do in Web 3.0, powered by blockchain and cryptocurrencies, is turn that electric database into a data bank. And individuals will be able to monetize their data and be able to monetize their information. And so what we're looking at is really that infrastructure build, and that's why I think it could have just such a massive impact.
Now this is live now, trading out there under BKC. How has the early volume, how has the early response been from the market?
It's trading under, the symbol is BKC on the NYSE. We've had a lot of interest from registered investment advisors. We've had a lot of interest from high net worth individuals. People are getting up to speed on it. We've only been up and trading for a few months now, but we've been pretty excited about the response we've got.
And you mentioned it's not as volatile, obviously, as the cryptocurrencies, because you're not holding the underlying cryptocurrencies. What has the volatility been like? What has the portfolio performance been like so far? Have there been any surprises to you as you're kind of managing this blockchain basket? Well, I didn't really expect that, or maybe some of the correlations were a little bit different, because some of these companies, it's kind of hard to get at, if you're investing in, let's say, a Microsoft, to get at the core blockchain without getting everything else, the Windows, the Xbox, all the other divisions. So how do you mitigate that as well as a portfolio manager? You want the underlying exposure to blockchain, but you're getting all this other stuff. How do you maybe filter out the detritus as well and get at the core underlying that you want?
Yeah, so that's a great question. What we look at, it's in how we weight the different positions. We internally have a 1 through 5 ranking system, with 5 being the biggest pure play in the space, and we effectively weight the positions on the portfolio based on heaviest weight in the pure plays, and then number 1 obviously would be kind of the lowest weight. So that's how we look at it. That being said, this is global equity, so it's not going to be immune from what goes on in the general equity markets in the world, in the U.S. and in the world. We are tilted about 45% Asia. We have a heavy weighting towards the U.S. as well. So we will be correlated to those stock markets for sure. So I wouldn't want to give people the impression that we wouldn't be correlated to that. But what we're trying to do is isolate some certain exposure for people.
Yeah, that's got to be a challenge as well, because a lot of the selling point I've seen for a lot of people out there investing in the myriad different cryptocurrencies is that some call them inverse correlate. I think they're more non-correlated assets, really, and that's a selling point. In these types of market conditions, having something that isn't correlated to the broad market is a nice plus. We're seeing a lot of volatility out there in the broad equity landscape these days, but having something that is holding, like you mentioned, a lot of baskets with Asia and also holdings with large tech names, it's going to be subject to a lot of those movements we're seeing out there in the marketplace. So has that been a bit of a stumbling block for you guys, or is that maybe more of a selling point? Hey, we're correlated to these things that usually tend to go up. Right now, not so much, but in the long term, it tends to be an upward drift. Or is that is that not been a selling point for you guys? They want more of the non-correlated crypto asset space instead.
Well, this portfolio is a long-term portfolio. This portfolio is designed to capture the non-cyclical growth, this secular change that's going on. So, we view it very much from a long-term lens, and we view that, I think because we're actively managed, we don't have an index that we have to benchmark against. We're actively managed. We're able to add and subtract assets as we deem necessary, and we can do it very quickly, very nimbly. And so I would expect over the next 6 months, 12 months, the portfolio that we have today to look very different than the portfolio we have in the future as more and more pure plays come along.
Yes, that will be interesting for the space as we see, like you mentioned, the pure plays and not having to just take a piece of Microsoft or an Amazon or what have you, and really being able to directly invest in the underlying infrastructure. Well, Brian, I know you guys just kind of got started, but the name is Options Insider Radio, so I think I am legally obligated to ask you if you guys have any plans to list some options in the near future, because I'm sure that's what all of our listeners want to know.
Yeah, so we don't particularly have any plans. I can't say that anybody else who wants to, knock yourself out, go for it. But it's not in our playbook at this point. We're 100% focused on just managing the portfolio.
Well, Brian, this has kind of been a fascinating little check-in here on all things. We had a lot of people coming in talking different aspects of blockchain, but not many that you can actually directly sink your teeth into and invest. So I think our audience will find this fascinating. Again, the ticker out there, if you want to check it out for yourselves, is BKC. And Brian, this has been a fascinating conversation, but if you wanted to, if you think we left anything out, or if you want to maybe leave our audience with a little bit of a hint, a little bit of a tease of what they can expect from you guys over there at BKC, and indeed from the BKCM Digital Asset Fund in the near future, now is the time, sir. The floor is yours.
Well, thank you. No, a real pleasure to be on. I appreciate it. Thanks to your audience for taking the time out to talk about this. The one thing I would just say to everybody is understand that this space is new technology. It's very early in the cycle. We've got multiple decades, in my view, of this kind of infrastructure build out. And don't be afraid of the fact that you might not understand all the technology behind it at this point in time. Just remember that it's software that disintermediates financial services. It's disruptive software, and I think you're going to be fine with that.
And if people want to learn more either about the fund or indeed what you guys do as well, where should they go, Brian? What should they do?
Yeah, so you can go to the RecShares website, and we have multiple resources there, including articles that I've written, as well as links to many others.
Great. Check it out. That's Rex Shears, REX, and then Shears, like you normally would spell it, .com to learn more. And Brian, this has been fascinating. I will look forward to maybe checking back in with you down the road as the fund here has a few more months under its belt and we could see how it performs in the broad marketplace.
Sounds great.
Great. Thank you. And thank you for listening. And we'll see you again soon for more episodes here of Options Insider Radio.
The preceding program was a production of the Options Insider Radio Network. For more quality options programs, visit www.theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app, available in iTunes and on Google Play. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, facebook.com/The Options Insider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.